I mentioned the recovery map contest earlier today, where 1/10,000,000th of the TARP funds were going to be promised to the winner. And here are the contestant E's. John Frank, and I'm sorry, from MetaCarta. Thank you, guys.
I'm John Frank.
And I'm John Seratt. MetaCarta does not make maps or content. MetaCarta is the intersection of maps and content. MetaCarta reads through unstructured text and identifies location references based on the author's intent. So whether identifying a potential Taliban meeting location in northern Afghanistan or identifying flu preparations in Queens, New York. Cities and counties are one thing to identify. What about buildings in your neighborhood, hospitals, elementary schools, or perhaps even the park bench 2 blocks west of Washington Square? These are all entities that MetaCarta can identify, along with hundreds of millions of other entities and areas. Over a decade, MetaCarta has been providing geo-search solutions across billions of web documents.
For example, here's an ArcGIS application built on the Esri stack. It's a Flex application that's loading these document icons from a MetaCarta web service. Zooming in towards San Jose here, we do a keyword search for kidnapping against the last month or so of public news. Here's an article about an attempted kidnapping at the Fremont Hills High School. MetaCarta identified this name, Fremont Hills High School, and figured out that it's relevant to kidnapping to generate that search result. So when we first started talking with Brady about what would be cool to present here, we talked about government and geography. So I thought, okay, we're going to take the acronym soup of the GeoWeb, and we're going to mix it with the acronym soup of the DoD. And he stopped me there, and he said, no, we want to talk about something stimulating. So we had to think about that for a second. X'd off a few on the list pretty quickly and settled on politics. What's hot today? Well, the economic recovery is something that everybody cares about. And we all care about it in an importantly different way because we care about it in a local sense. So go to any search engine, try Google, try Yahoo, do economic recovery as a keyword search, and your next instinct is to start typing your town name, right? Same at live. Which seems kind of silly, right? We've been talking about all these wonderful location APIs. The browser knows where you are. There ought to be a little map right here that says, well, you search for economic recovery. You're in Yonkers. I'm there. Why don't we talk about this? So I care more about the town hall meeting at 100 California Road just a couple blocks away. Or maybe this talk about the green shoots of an improving economic situation at the New York Athletic Club close to me. And while we've got a map there, the map itself is a query. My senator, my state senator, just was exposed as not actually living in my district. My neighborhood isn't good enough for him. So even without a keyword, the map is a query to find information that's relevant to me. So John, how can I find my neighborhood stimulus story on a map?
Well, what we do is we recruit this entire audience to see who can create the best map layer. And for the person that can create the best map layer by 4 o'clock today, you will earn 1/10,000,000th of the stimulus package. And if you're getting your calculator out, we've figured that out for you. It's $82.
So go to recoverymap.org, please. Start now. And even if you don't have a web browser, I'll show you what it's like. There's a link at the top to take you directly to the map. And this is a fun mashup that uses a bunch of different layers. The MetaCarta document icons are clearly there. That's one of the search layers. And the point is to experience the recovery in a local sense. So zoom in to an area you care about. I'll go into San Diego here. Get into the downtown area. Click on a document icon. Here's one that talks about Mission Viejo. It's getting stimulus dollars. And next step is important here. Watch carefully. I'm going to click on Save This. Okay? Save this. It changed the pop-up. It's now pinned down. So as I add more layers, click the Add New Layer button. I can add Flickr layers, map tile layers. I'm going to do a keyword search for water. and find news articles about water in this area. So West Basin. Think about how many places in the world are called the West Basin. MetaCarta had to figure out that this author meant this particular West Basin to plot this news article here. So again, I'll click Save This. And now, next step is also important. I'm going to click Save Configuration. Dialog is going to appear. Put in a title, description. Now watch at the URL. When I click OK, the URL changes. You now have a permalink. It's based on the title you created. And you can share it with anyone you like. In fact, to enter the contest, this is how you enter. You click Share, click Email, fill out this web form, and email whatever layers you create to labs@metacarta.com. So with that as an intro, let me show you a couple of the cool kinds of things you can discover using all this rich data about places. Pulling in different data layers from all over the web. Here's one that's really taking you from statistics to stories. We know statistically there's a lot more wind energy and alternative energy used on the West Coast and some in the Midwest. So these colors here are from a rectified map that shows you how much wind energy is in these different states. And it's interesting that there's significantly less wind energy in states that happen to be receiving more stimulus dollars to start doing wind energy. This is the kind of thing you can look at on a map and understand in a much more immediate and intuitive way than if you had just, say, list-based results. Turns out the stimulus package isn't just generating jobs there, it's actually changing the way we get energy in states that haven't previously embraced as much alternative energy. It's also helping economically in small towns. If you look at Rolette, Texas, they had a budget shortfall. They needed to figure out how to fix that. And they did it by changing how they get their energy, partially from stimulus dollars, deploying a wind turbine, and other energy buying maneuvers. Check out up in Minnesota. They're buying wind turbines. And there's a local discussion happening here. There's discourse at the local level. People are talking about places where they could deploy wind turbines. They're talking about a mining company that's not going to use as much energy anymore, and they're laying people off. And the combination of this data is relevant to those people in a way that's different for those of us who don't live there. Check out New Haven. There's a school that's going to make itself self-reliant. They're going to get off the grid, or be able to be off the grid by deploying a wind turbine that's bought with the stimulus dollars. And that's not where it stops, though. It keeps going. There's a high school that's now taking field trips to see that wind turbine. And there are talks at the Yale Divinity School a few blocks away about energy and spirituality. How would you find that without georeferencing all this text? Let's look at Miami. Miami's had a lot more solar historically than wind. And the stimulus is helping them add both solar and wind. There's the American Airlines Arena has gone solar. That's mentioned deep in this article about this Taiwanese stadium that's also gone solar. If we zoom deep into Miami here, there are articles everywhere. You can explore any neighborhood, including your own, to understand how the stimulus package is affecting people. Zoom out just a little bit here and we discover that Obama's energy czar was a professor just a couple blocks away. And there's a lot of local texture. Just search for anything that interests you and you'll find data that would have been really hard to find with just a straight keyword search. So let's jump across the country to the other side. This is now the Pacific Northwest. And there's a lot of stimulus dollars going into concrete. A lot of bridges and dams, and in this case, $12 million for painting a bridge and $26 million for deepening a river. And I was trying to figure out whether this is really going to help people, so I read some of the other articles here, and I found that it's really rural. People do live there, but the population density is much reduced. So it's millions of dollars going in to create jobs there, and then the number of people who will benefit from it might be significantly less than in a more densely populated area. And I wasn't the first person to start thinking about that. People on the ground there were figuring that out and writing about it. In fact, if you take a lot of news articles about schools and about construction projects, there's a major disparity. Schools are canceling art programs, laying off teachers. The Skyline Elementary School canceled their art program. And the budget shortfalls in these schools are small. They're like a few $100,000 compared to tens of millions of dollars for building an HOV lane or resurfacing a road. And the difference is, of course, something that a lot of people are writing about at a local level. Teachers aren't shovel ready, right? So we can put money into a project if we can do it now, but planning on having great teachers next year is something that isn't part of some of the stimulus package. So what's happening in your neighborhood? What dollars are going towards the schools? What dollars are going towards concrete? Figure that out and make a map about it. Just to give you a sampling of this type of information across the country, I want to highlight these circles, the green circles and the red circles. These come from Stimulus Watch, where they've been collecting votes on which projects are popular and which projects are less popular. Red means less popular, green is popular. So it's amazing to me that in Mobile, Alabama, people are actually voting more against a big chunk of stimulus dollars that would save 24,000 teachers' jobs. What's the local story there? Maybe that's yours. Maybe that's the map that you should make, dive in and understand. So to give you a sampling of some of the other information that's available across every city in the US, I'm going to dive into one that I know pretty well. We have an office in Washington, D.C., spent a lot of time there with our government colleagues, and the stimulus isn't just being designed there, it's also being spent there. They're doing facelifts on historical buildings, and if we zoom in towards, say, the Northern Virginia suburbs, here's some samples of the kind of content you can find. Partial addresses like this, Old Waterford Road, right in the middle of the article, it mentions Old Waterford Road, so our technology had to figure out that that was in this part of Virginia. Here's some more examples like that. You can imagine how many market streets there are in the United States. This is mentioned in free-form text, so we had to disambiguate which market street. High schools, middle schools. Here's Wheaton High School. A lot of those across the country. Here's a church. The sheriff's office mentioned by name. Swine flu. Try doing a search for swine flu. There's tons of content everywhere you look about schools shutting down because they're panicked, reopening, which students were sick. Here's a library that delayed their big festivities because it was going to bring too many people in close contact with each other. So what's happening locally is really about the map. So this rich content enables a spectrum of user experiences, from the mission-critical Intel analyst to a casual web user. As John said, MetaCarta doesn't make maps. We make maps more relevant. So here's another example that you can get to from the labs website. Go to labs.metacarta.com, and you can try this Silverlight application. This is a Silverlight virtual earth control. Silverlight's a really powerful environment for mapping. And the stream of news here is about 200,000 articles a day. And as the stream goes by, we're georeferencing it and flying to whatever places are mentioned that moment in the news. So here's Stewart Airport. You'll see a rainbow-colored density layer coming in that shows you other places you could explore where there's recent news. Going towards Boston here, Fenway Park. I live in Cambridge, so I'm going to pause the stream here and zoom in towards Harvard Square. And you see these different pieces of text from web and news and blogs that mention buildings, interesting places around here. Get down to the street level. This mini map that pops up here is really a magnifying glass, and as you pan it or pan the big map, they both move in synchrony. Just a fun thing to do with a map. There's a building at 10 Folan Street. Theodore Richard's house, a historical building. Now I'm going to restart the stream by clicking this forward arrow here. And we jump out to the world and start jumping from place to place again. Here's a mention to the Bay Area, a mention to Hong Kong, South Africa. Here's a museum of contemporary art, happens to be in Boulder. And I'm going to pause the stream again and start exploring the content around this area.
So in summary, MetaCarta leverages military-grade natural language processing, knows of 100 times more locations than any other organization, and delivers geo-relevant search on any map platform. Thank you very much for your time. We look forward to seeing your submissions.
Thank you. And thank you, Brady.